2013 was the most important year of my life. When I look back at my entire life, I see it almost split into two parts. Pre-2013 and post-2013, because if you knew me back then and you know me now, I'm a completely different person. So back then I was lazy, I was unmotivated, I was so laid about. But fast forward to right now, and in terms of productivity, I'd say that I'm pretty good. My time management is on point, I'm productive, and just decent at getting 2021 me. There's an absolutely astronomical difference, and it all countries. And I met some incredible people, scientists, pilots, going strong 8 years later. So back in 2013, everyone I knew was pretty much average. It was only until I started to venture outside of my safety net, my existing social circle at the time, it was only then that I was triggered into because I started to surround myself with inspirational people through the media that I consumed. So I'd replace listening to music with listening to podcasts, and instead of watch productivity videos on YouTube, I'd read books like Arnold Schwarzenegger's autobiography Total Recall and Elon Musk's biography. Obviously, it's virtually impossible to have these all-time greats in our social circle, right? But you can kind of replicate the inspirational, and that's where this video sponsor short form can be so beneficial in helping and supporting you with. But what I like about short form is that reading is a relatively passive activity, right? I'm sure we've all been there where we've read a chapter in a book but almost immediately forgotten what over to your long-term memory because you're actively having to think and implement that knowledge. But also you can listen to these summaries in audio form when you have summaries of thousands of non-fiction books that cover categories like productivity, self-improvement. It's a ridiculously inspirational book. The guy's been dubbed the toughest person. You go ahead and buy it. So if you want to check short form out, there's a link in the description where the next 100 visitors to that URL will gain free unlimited access for 5 days and a discounted annual subscription. And this strategy of surrounding yourself with positivity and inspiration at school or at university, you'll start to study harder because those self-limiting believe you even more to study harder because you're seeing the changes, you're seeing the benefits, and so you'll be even more motivated. And it's kind of this uphill spiral that you should be aiming to catch. One word of productive content consumption. So like I said earlier, watching productivity videos on YouTube rather than binge watching the Kardashians, right? But at the same time, I know that there are so many of you that procrastinate by watching these kinds of videos. I mean, sure, it's better than watching non-educational videos, but at the same time, if you're watching productivity videos after productivity video after productivity video and using it as a way to procrastinate, then it kind of defeats the purpose, right? It's really easy to also procrastinating. So I was on a coaching call a couple of weeks ago now, and the client said to me that what she does is she watches one productivity video, and as soon as that video ends, she gets straight back to work. It's a kind of rule that she has, and I think that's quite a good strategy to adopt. Another way in which I live significantly different now than I did back in 2013 is that I now have the foundations of a healthy lifestyle. So the 3 pillars for me is exercise, diet, and sleep. And I think to get anywhere in life, to achieve any kind of success, having those 3 elements, exercise, diet, and sleep in check, and go to sleep at 6 in the morning. I used to eat a lot of junk food and rarely, if ever, exercise. I could talk to them all day about how they could improve their grades, but they should be starting eating healthily and getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. Really, that's where I really like the idea of making incremental improvements as well. Just making seemingly small improvements to your productivity, to your workflow, that will over time build up to massive improvements in productivity. I told you I went from overnight, right? It took probably a good 1 or 2 years of working on it almost every day. So consuming inspirational content, making incremental improvements to my life every single day took a long time, but it was completely worth it because at least I'd like to think I've hit this level of productivity and waved goodbye to my laziness permanently. It's not easy to essentially fundamentally change the person that you are, right? Especially if it's a characteristic or personality trait that you've had for most of your life, right? It takes a lot and what needs to improve and then taking massive action to fix them, because 2013 me knew I had so many weaknesses. I was lazy, getting bad grades, I was living pretty unhealthy, and I knew to create action. So if I could give you one piece of advice, an action, the first would be implement the immersion technique like I talked about into your life. So the media you consume, make it positive, inspirational stuff, because at the end of the day, one thing, set a goal. Maybe your goal is to say to yourself, I will study has been formed, then work on fixing something else in your life. But also be mindful of what distractions you're turning to, especially if you're prone to procrastination like most of us are, right? Because being aware of what is distracting you from your work is the first step to taking action on fixing it. So for example, my phone distracts me a lot more than it normally would. So now so it's these kind of distractions and these obstacles that are getting in the way of your productivity that you need to be aware of. So spending 10 to 15 minutes can be so powerful, because you can't make tomorrow better if you don't understand today. So just 10 minutes or so reflecting on the contributing factors that maybe activities, that kind of thing. So one of the biggest problems that people face that essentially induce this laziness is tiredness, right? When you get so tired during the day that you just can't be bothered to work. That used to be a massive obstacle for me. So I made a video recently on how to stop feeling tired during the day. You can click on the video on the screen. Again, you can click on the screen. And if you want to check out this video sponsor short form, I really recommend you do. There's a link in the description below where the next 100 visitors to my URL will gain free unlimited access for 5 days.